Hello, and welcome to my channel. It's official, the World Athletics Championships for 2025 have concluded. And I have a ton of videos I want to make, and I am so excited to make them. But the first video I wanted to make post-World Championships was my second half of my World Champs recaps. If you remember, I made a video with my first half of World Champs, all those recaps. I'm going to link that in the description down below, and you can view it on my channel page if you're interested in seeing what happened between day 1, September 13th, and day 4, September 16th. Days 5 through 9, September 17th to the 21st, will be covered in this video. I'm just going to go over my thoughts and feelings, go over who won what, and so if you need to do some catching up on the second half of these World Champs, this is a great place to start. With that being said, let's get right into it. On day 5, September 17th, we saw some incredible action. The women's pole vault was the first thing that stood out to me. The battle between Katie Moon and Sandy Morris. I feel like that battle had just been brewing. It was long overdue, in my opinion. The two Americans, Sandy Morris obviously having a horrible, I just tried to say torrid and horrible at the same time. A horrible time with injury these past couple of years, but she looks to be back in really amazing form. She jumped 485 to claim silver behind Katie Moon. Third attempt clearance at 490 to take the win. It just doesn't get better than that. I love when the final comes down to a single third event clearance. It's so much drama, it's so stressful, but the reactions are always the best, and hers absolutely did not disappoint. So the United States went 1-2. Tina Šuček of Slovakia coming in for a surprise bronze medal. That's been a huge theme of these championships, is the surprise bronze medals. It kind of happens at a lot of championships, but I've seen it especially this year at these championships. We've had so many surprise podium finishes. Immediately what also comes to mind is Angelika Topic in the women's high jump. I will get to that, but it's just great to see people who don't expect to be on the podium, their reactions when they realize they have made a global podium. It's one of my favorite things about our sport. And also a shout out in the women's pole vault final to the Mole twins, who both had matching 465 clearances for a tied 6th place, because what other way? To be honest, like, they had to at the World Championships be tied. It just makes so much sense. But there was also some really good pressure from a couple of New Zealand athletes, and Emily Sobakova of Czechia finished in 4th, just off the podium. All 4 of the top 4 women jumped season's bests in that race. In that competition. We also had even more action on the field with the men's long jump. This was insane. This was absolutely crazy. Tentaglu completely out of it. Simon Ehammer just missing the medals in 4th. And Matteo Furlani looking not himself for the first 3 or 4 rounds. And then he just comes out with a massive personal best 8:39 to steal the competition from Tajay Gale when it looked like he was going to run away with the damn thing. It was crazy. Furlani, Gale, and Shi of China on the top of the leaderboard. Furlani with that personal best in the late rounds. Absolutely just so insane. We knew that Furlani was a huge favorite going into this, and when Tentaglu faltered and finished in 11th place in this final, we were like, he's certainly going to run away with it. Tajay Gale obviously has been very good this year, but to see him have the gold medal in his hands and then to have Furlani absolutely snatch it was a wild competition and absolutely so much fun. We also had the women's 3,000 steeplechase on day 5. Faith Cheretich I was shell shocked at this final, mostly because I think this is my own personal bias. Because the only races I've ever watched Winfred Yavi run live are ones that I've watched her win. Like, I've watched her lose races in like a pre-recorded format, but I feel like live viewing just makes a lot more of an impression, and every race she's ever been in that I've watched live, she has won. So in my mind, she was kind of like Sufjan Abakali, like girl is never gonna lose. But Faith Cheritich just pulling away after that final water jump course record, 8:51.59, and just honestly, it was an outstanding race. Chaos in the last water jump, though, and unfortunately, the fall of Peruth Chemutai. I had her on my podium. I was so looking forward to her being a huge factor, but unfortunately, falling in the relatively early goings, and she did not finish the race, which was really unfortunate. But Cheritich in the closing stages, I was nowhere near expecting that. So we had Cheritich from Yavi and Almanayu. I forgot to give my disclaimer, so I'll give it now. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. I don't mean any disrespect, and I do generally look up names I know I'm going to have to pronounce, but when I have so many that I'm trying to figure out, and also I just suck at pronunciation in general, a lot of times I don't pronounce them right. I'm so sorry. I don't mean any disrespect by it, like, at all. But anyways, an amazing finish. The last lap was absolutely chaos. I had no idea what to expect going into that final lap. It was absolutely chaos. Speaking of chaos and speaking of unexpected, this is like the poster child for what happens when you leave a race maybe a little later than you normally would. In the men's 1500 meters, Isaac Nader of Portugal. Now, with Ingebrigtsen going out and with everybody kind of knowing going into World Champs that he wasn't in top form, there were a lot of predictions flying around. And there were 9 or 10 guys where I was like, they have a decent shot. But if you had me rank my top 10 based on who I thought would take this, Isaac Nader would not have been in the top 10. I mean, he's a phenomenal athlete. He's shown kind of a streak of something incredible this season so far. But to go from kind of the level that we've seen him race at this season to the kind of tactical, speedy, like it's speed and it's tactics and it's everything in the 1500. To see that ascension in the World Championship, absolutely insane. And Jake Whiteman with a return to form, I was really hoping that he got the gold on the line. He just missed out, but honestly, if you're Jake Whiteman, you gotta just be thrilled with that, because he has also, since that surprise win a couple of years ago, just had a terrible time. And then the Chariots right behind, Renaud Chariot beating Timothy Chariot. The announcers kept saying the other Chariot got the bronze, not the one you'd expect, but an incredible bronze for Kenya, getting them on the podium at least in some capacity. Of course, Josh Kerr jogging it in had some sort of injury. It looked like maybe got clipped, stumbled, hurt himself somehow, so that was really, really unfortunate, especially because the race was really playing into his hands, and Niels Laros just didn't have the finishing power that we've seen from him the last couple of weeks. I tend to think maybe he just peaked a little bit too early in this season. But Isaac Nader, I'm going to make a video where I rank kind of the surprises of the championships. That one has got to be up there because the race of his absolute life. With that, we will move on to day 6, the 18th of September. The first final of the day was the men's javelin, and it was not without its fireworks, with Kiershawn Walcott taking a kind of surprise gold. I mean, we all knew, I think most people considered him a contender, But when it comes to like of Anderson Peters, Julian Weber, Julius Yago, not even to mention Neeraj Chopra and Arshad Nadeem, who finished way down in the standings this time, you just don't think of a guy like Wolcott as someone who is going to come and unleash an 88.16 meter throw in a championship. But he did for his season's best, which is crazy. It's a crazy throw from a guy who maybe you expected to maybe be a bronze medal factor. From Wolcott, from Peters, and Curtis Thompson of the US, 86.67 for the bronze. I honestly didn't get to watch too much of this final. I wished I had got to watch more of it, but it was really, really interesting, especially with the way qualification played out, with who got the automatic qualifiers. It was definitely not the finish that you would have expected. Speaking of not the finish you would have expected, the women's triple jump final. Although I do think a lot of people expected this. Yulima Rojas, an incredible return to form. She hasn't competed in like 2 entire years, comes back and wins bronze in 14.76. I know people are like, she should have gotten gold. Honestly, like, that is so impressive to come out of a 2-year-long injury and just be able to jump that, especially because I believe it was an Achilles injury, which those are like the absolute worst, especially in an event like triple jump. But Linneas Perez Hernandez from Tia Lafond from Yulima Rojas, I think a lot of people did kind of expect the showdown between the likes of Perez Hernandez and Tia Lafond. There were some people who were lower down in the standings that I think people expected to feature more, but it kind of turned into a battle between the two, and Perez Hernandez, with some really big jumps early in the competition, kind of put it away. So it was definitely fun to watch, though, and to see the return of Rojas after so long is just, it's always so great to see when you don't expect them to come back and then they come back in absolutely insane form. But that wasn't the main fireworks. The main fireworks on September 18th were definitely in the track. I'm not going to be covering Sydney McLaughlin-Levroni's destruction in this video because I've already made a whole video about that is on my channel page, and I will try to link it down below as well. But I will cover the men's 400 meters Botswana. The second I watched this, I was like, yeah, they're winning the 4x4, and then they won the 4x4. So yeah, because Busong Kevinichipi 43.53 for the win from Jareem Richards. Trinidad and Tobago had a great day on day 6. And then Badupo Nodori also getting the bronze for Botswana. Also, Jareem Richards out of lane 1 or 2, out of the inside lanes to pick up silver is really impressive. But the Botswanans basically just unleash absolute hell on this field. They weren't even the only 2 Botswanans. Also, Lee Benkupu Epe also made the final. He finished in 8th. 44.77 though to finish in 8th in this final, which is absolutely insane. And like I said, the women's, my kind of breakdown of the women's results will be on my page because I have a lot more to say about that. All I will say, if you have been under a rock recently, Sydney McLaughlin-Levroni 47.78 championship record and fastest time in 40 years. Okay, let's go to day 7, the 19th of September. We did kick off the heptathlon on the 19th. The 19th and the 20th were the heptathlon days. The 20th and the 21st were the decathlon days for this competition. I do like it being kind of near the end of the competition. I think that's fun. I'm not going to super unpack every single kind of event for the heptathlon. I'm going to give an overview, and I will do that on the day that the event concluded. So I'll do that for when I'm talking about everything for the 20th. But we did have a couple of finals still on the track on September 19th. The men's triple jump was first, and this one was kind of a mix Pedro Pichardo was a lot of people's gold medal picks. I think, like, it wasn't a super surprise. There was kind of a mixed bag on who people thought would win this, but Pichardo, like I said, I'm so bad at pronouncing things. But Pichardo, he was a lot of people's favorites for this title. It was kind of splintered around a bit, but he was definitely one of the favorites. The main upset was the Italian upset, because we definitely expected an Italian to feature on the podium. That Italian was not Andrea De La Ville, though. It was Andy Diaz-Hernandez, who finished back in 6th in what is a disappointing performance given the seasons he's had. Andrea De La Ville having the absolute opposite, personal best, 17.64, had the gold medal in his absolute hand, and then Pichardo with the most incredible, the most poetic, cinematic last round jump to just absolutely snatch it out of his hands. And De La Ville can be a little disappointed, but he can't even be that mad because it was a personal best in the first place. And Lazaro Martinez of Cuba, proving the Cubans are just absolutely insane in any jumping event, especially the triple jump. And Cheeky finished just off the podium. Lots of people expected him to factor, and he was just off here. Then we had the men's and women's 400-meter hurdles. The men's side, Rai Benjamin repeated his Olympic title in 46.52 from Alison dos Santos and Samba of Qatar. I am not going to embarrass myself with the pronunciation. I'm so sorry. I literally looked it up and it has left my brain how to say it. But they had a really great 1-2-3, a very close competition all the way down to the wire. However, lots of people definitely had Rai Benjamin winning. Dos Santos in second and Samba in third was definitely something a lot of people did not expect. Karsten Warholm hitting a hurdle incredibly hard, and that essentially ended his hopes at a medal. He did end up finishing in 5th. He did walk away from that race with an injury, though, which is super unfortunate. Also, 2 athletes from Qatar in this final, which I don't think that's ever happened before, but I always watch them in the 400 hurdles. Qatar has amazing 400 hurdlers. It's one of those things where you're just like, they turn out a lot of people that are really good in this specific event. I feel like Qatar in general had a pretty good championships, but Samba picking up the bronze here. He looked absolutely ecstatic when he found out that was confirmed, because he was just a few hundredths ahead of Ezekiel Nathaniel of Nigeria, who just missed out. On the women's side, a bit of a different story. Not much was close here. Femke Bol, 41.54. Girl finally doesn't have to worry about Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, so she made the best of it. Second was Jasmine Jones, running a really good PB. She hasn't been at this event that long, actually. And a 52.08, almost dipping inside that 51 seconds. I think she can, especially because she hasn't been running this for that long. And then Emma Zaplatova of Slovakia, I believe, coming through for the bronze. A national record, 53 seconds flat. I would say she'll be mad about that one, but I don't even think she can be mad because she ran a national record in a global final. You can't even be mad about that. But an amazing performance, and she hawked down Anna Cockrell. You gotta watch this girl because she is hot right now. Who hawks down Anna Cockrell? Like, no one has ever. Anna Cockrell hawks people down. So that was a crazy one, I won't lie, but I love to see it kind of opening up because Sydney isn't running anymore. Obviously, I love to see Sydney running the 400 hurdles, but I also love to see that people who wouldn't even normally have a chance are now having a chance because no one's running 50 seconds in this final. And the marquee event of day 2 which actually kind of went exactly how we expected it to. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, it kind of went exactly according to plan. Men's 200 meters, Noah Lyles, no one was beating this man. 92.51. I kind of expected it to be faster, but I think he honestly burned his gas off, which is like a dumb thing that Noah Lyles would certainly do. And I don't say that with hate to Noah Lyles. I could not do better, but I do know that sometimes he goes out really hard in the semis and kind of cooks himself for the final, especially because I think the semis and the final were a single day apart in this competition, but he still smoked the entire field, 92.52. 1952, I mean, 92.52. What are we running now? And then Kenny Monarch makes it a US 1-2, 92.58. And Brian Lavelle, he looked so hot through all of the heats. You could not have kept this man off a podium with a brick wall. He was hot in the first round, in the semis, and in the finals. I mean, he ran 1964. A personal best for him, and also, since when does a 1964 get you a bronze medal? Are we back in the Bolt era? I think we may be, because Let's-Celia DePogo also completely gets left off the podium. That is a really disappointing championship for him. I know he picked up some hardware in the relays, but getting DQ'd in the 100 for the false start, and then 4th in the 200 with a 1965, that is a bad day at the office. And on the women's side, again, first place kind of what we expected. Melissa Jefferson Wooden dusted this field in 21.68. No one has run faster this year because no one can run faster than this woman. She is on a tear, my friends. I saw a comment on TikTok or something. I wish I had saved it because I would love to give credit. But somebody said that this is what happens when you give an underdog a taste of global glory. And I was like, I think that's a pretty accurate description of the year we have seen out of Melissa Jefferson Wooden. Amy Hunt, however, is definitely a surprise. 22.14 to come through for the silver medal. Her reaction was everything. I love when athletes have like the best reactions, and hers was the best. So you should definitely take a peek at that if you're watching the replays from this race. And Sharika Jackson, a very hard-fought bronze to stave off the likes of Anavia Battle, who has had an amazing season but finishes just outside the medals in 4th. And that concludes day 7. Let's go to day 8. Day 8, September 20th, start off with the race walk, Maria Perez. I don't really have to say anything about that because it's Maria Perez, and it was Bonfim from Brazil, a kind of surprise winner actually on the men's side. And aside from that, we just had a ton of decathlon and pentathlon stuff in the morning. I was watching it. This weekend was kind of a rough one for me because I stayed up late Friday night watching the morning session, went to sleep for like not long enough, then woke up to watch the evening session at like 6 in the morning, which is not that early, but I was up till like 11 watching the morning session. Then I did the same thing all over again last night. I'm filming this on a Sunday night, except I had a race Sunday morning and I did a double today. So after I record this video, I'm going to bed. But it's a much better time change than Paris. Let me just get that straight. I did not have to wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm very grateful for that. But getting into the evening on September 20th, our first final was in the women's shot put. A surprise upset. Chase Jackson did not defend her title, being beat out by 8 centimeters by Jessica Schilder of the Netherlands. The absolute competition of her life, and Madison Lelouch needed to throw an equal personal best just to get bronze. I always think it's interesting when athletes run an equal or throw an equal personal best. In the jumps, it like makes a little bit more sense, but when you throw it or run it, it's like, wow, you were literally right on it. Like that's crazy to me. Like to the centimeter of the exact mark you set before is pretty insane. But Ogunlele will not defend her Olympic title. She finished back in 6th. that was a pretty great competition. I wish we'd gotten to see more of it, but because of how the schedule lined up, they didn't show a lot of it on the main broadcast. Sometimes I'll pull it up on another device so I can like dual screen it like an iPad kid, but I didn't do that this time. And I don't usually talk about heats in these types of overview videos, but I will touch on the chaos that happened with Zambia in the 4x4 for the men in the heats. So basically, if you don't know what happened, Zambia impeded two different teams in their attempts to get into the men's 4x4 final. Let me see if they have the official results. They didn't actually put like the official rerun results on the results page, but there were two different teams that were impeded by Zambia. It was Kenya and the United States. So they ended up having to do a rerun, exact same teams, exact same order, the morning of the final. So they had to run the rerun in the morning and then run the final. Didn't really end up mattering too much, at least for like final results wise, just because the US did end up beating Kenya by a pretty fair margin and they swapped out their entire team for the final anyways. But if that had been a team like Botswana, like that would have probably been pretty disastrous. I'm glad it wasn't because I love to watch them win in the 4x4. But that was basically the chaos. And then there was another team, I believe it was South Africa, that was impeded in the 4x1, and they also had to do a rerun. That one was by themselves though, which is significantly less exciting and more depressing because it's really hard to run in that format. I can tell you that because I'm on a small school track team and I have to race myself all the time, and our relay teams have to race themselves all the time too, and it's annoying and it sucks. But we had honestly a great day of women's throwing events on day 8 because we also had the women's javelin throw, a surprise winner from Angulu of Ecuador picking up the gold in a national record 65-12, completely unexpected, huge personal best. Between when she entered the competition and when she came home with the gold medal, she improved her personal best by like 5 meters, which is insane. And Antti Setina of Latvia taking home the silver medal, also a personal best for her, and Mackenzie Little from Australia round out the podium with 3rd place. That final, that was crazy. Go watch the replays. Like, if you're gonna watch a throws replay, I would definitely recommend like the hammer throws and then the women's javelin, because both those competitions were absolutely outstanding. Specifically the Latvian athlete, when she threw that huge personal best, her reaction, I love watching them be so happy. Like, it's my favorite thing. So maybe it's just me, but I really like to watch when they have a great reaction at the end. We also got to see the women's 5,000 meters. Pick a name and draw it out of a hat. Well, actually, no, that's not what I mean at all. Pick a name, any name of a distance runner that you know. If you know nothing about track and field, you'll probably still know her because Beatrice Trebet, defending her title in the 5,000, 14:54. Faith Kipyegon right behind her, 14:55. The Kenyans looking so happy. The Kenyan women were on a distance tear. They won the 8, the 15, the 5, and oh my god, they won every distance event. From the 8 all the way to the 10. They won them all. Absolutely insane. And I have loved seeing the absolute sisterhood between the Kenyan runners, especially Kipyegon and Chebet. Chebet with tears streaming down her face while she watched Kipyegon win the 1,500. And they are enemies for 14 minutes and 34 seconds. But then the second they both cross the finish line, they're the best of friends. And Nadia Batakali with another medal. She is proving she is like the only one who can hang with the African nations in these races. They have dominated for so long, but the Italian is giving them a run for their money. 14:55.42. This race was insanely close. Shelby Houlihan of the USA just missing out on the podium. I'm not getting into that situation or how I feel about that. With everything, with her representing the US and winning at USA's, a lot of people have been making videos about that situation. I'm not going to talk about this situation. I have feelings on it. It's kind of like the Grand Slam track situation. I have feelings on it. I don't want to talk about it. But anyways, Gudas Sagai finishing in 5th. Josette Andrews in 6th. Actually pretty decent finishing places for the Americans before we finished off this night with the men's 800 meters. And Emmanuel Wanyonyi took this one by storm. Course record 141.86 from Sajadi of Algeria and Arope of Canada. So the big players were all there. They all delivered. Basically, what was the Olympic podium last year? I don't remember what order the minor medals were. Yeah, Emmanuel Wanyonyi won, and then who were the other two? Oh, it was a little bit different. I thought it might be the same podium It's a little bit different than the podium because I think Arap was silver in that race and Sajadi was bronze, if I remember correctly, and if that picture serves correctly, because for some reason I can't find the results. But anyways, it was basically like the Olympic top 4 all over again. Although Sian McPhillips of Ireland ran a national record 152.15 and still could only manage 4th place. That is absolutely insane, absolutely crazy. And with that, we moved into the final day of the competition. We had there was much drama, let's just say, in these races, and we also had like a weird kind of schedule with the heats of the relays where they were all quite tight. Like all the schedules for the relays were quite tight. Don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if it actually impacted anyone's ability to run fast because it was pouring rain the entire evening session. What a way to close out the championships with the most abominable conditions ever. They have their industrial squeegees trying to get the water off of the track. It was like crazy town. But within all that, we had the women's high jump. Nicola Oleslagers dropped 2 meters for the win on countback. Against who, you may ask? Probably not who you'd think. Maria Zodzik of Poland jumped a PB of 2 meters even. That must feel so good to get the silver, and a tie for bronze between Yaroslava Buhuchek, who was only able to clear 197. She is the world record holder at 210. Do I ever think she'll jump 210 again? No. That was like the most incredible thing ever, and it's one of those things where sometimes an athlete just has a freak performance. She is definitely in the conversation for best high jumper in the world. I mean, it's basically between her and Ollie Sluggers regardless of the results of this competition, but that record is like insane. It's a whole nother level. And she tied for the bronze with Angelina Topic of Serbia, who jumped a season's best 197. She is 20 years old, and I feel like she's already been on the scene for several years. She was like a phenom at 16, 17, 18, all the way up through. Her reaction, there have been a lot of wonderful reactions this championships. We had Amy Hunt. We had the German 4x1 team. We had Julia Patterson, all the way back on the first day of competition. We've had many amazing reactions. I think Angelina Topic's reaction for the bronze takes the cake, though, because I need to watch this over because it makes my heart so happy, because Yaroslava Mahuchik conserved one of her attempts. So Topic would tie for the bronze medal if Mahuchik didn't clear a bar. If Mahuchik cleared the bar, then Topic would be off the podium. And Angelina Topic, I don't know who, someone was like holding her because she like couldn't watch. She was terrified. You could see it on her face, and she's like she could barely watch as Mahoushik had this attempt. And then the second Mahoushik didn't clear the bar, the reaction was incredible. She was like bawling, she was crying. Everyone's trying to be like, okay, flag, pictures, this, that, and she's like crying. Tears of absolute joy. And it just makes you so happy for them, because like for most of, if not all of these athletes, this is like a childhood dream realized, especially when you're 20 years old and you are able to medal at a global senior final. That's just crazy. It's so insane, but it was such a great reaction. And speaking of the young guns, I actually should check on that, because I actually don't know. Yeah, she's 25. She's not really a young gun. I just think of her that way. She's a very youthful style of running. I think it might be her form. She's very relaxed. Maybe that's what that is. Lillian O'Deara in the women's 800, the surprise gold in front of Georgia Hunter-Bell and Keely Hodgkinson. Lots of people thought there would be no stopping the Brits, but they did. They stopped the Kenyans with a course record 154.62, so it took a lot to do it, and it was Justin Outleen on the line, Georgia Hunter-Bell with the silver in a personal best, Keely Hodgkinson with a bronze, Sage Hurdeklecker coming in 5th with a personal best. Actually, Sarah Murat in 4th had a personal best as well. It was a fast race. The Australian Jessica Hull couldn't quite hang on to the pace, which was unfortunate to see because she was advanced, I believe. It was like a whole big mess because she fell, but still an amazing final, amazing win for Kenya. Them from the 800 to the 10,000. It's the Kenyans all the way through. However, it was not a Kenyan in the men's 5,000 meters. With Jakob Ingebrigtsen not in form, he ended up finishing in 10th in this final. It was kind of a dog pile, but Cole Hawker. We talk about Cole Hawker in the inside. The haters talk about Cole Hawker in the inside. Cole Hawker got DQ'd in the 1500 trying to go on the inside. He was like, you know what? I need a change of pace. Revolutionary new strategy. I'm going on the outside. Honestly, thank God, because when an athlete gets used to going on the inside, it's really not a good thing a lot of times, because you can't always find an inside. There's always going to be more track if you go out, but going in is not always a for sure thing. So to see him go on the outside and take the win here was really great. He outdipped Isaac Kamele on the line, and Jimmy Gressier, gold in the 10K, bronze in the 5K, an amazing meet for him, the best meet of his life by far, and it just goes down the list with a lot of outstanding competition. It was all chaos. It was tactics. It was fast. It was a weird race, but Cole Hawker proves that he can hang with a sub 13-minute pace and win the race. Then we go back to the field for the men's discus, and for them they had Daniel Stahl, a kind of surprise winner for Sweden, over Mikolas Alekna, who he and his brother were both in this field. His brother finished back in 7th. Alekna still did manage the silver, but for someone with the accolades of Mikolas Alekna, that one's gotta hurt, but also makes the victory so much more sweet for Stahl of Sweden. The final throw of the competition, and well, of his competition, his final throw, and it wasn't even particularly close. Stahl threw 70.47. Alekna threw 67.84. And Alex Rose of Samoa taking the bronze medal in that one. Now I'm just going to go over where do I find the decathlon and heptathlon? I just realized that I did not put them on here. But I will go over them very quickly. Leo Neugebauer came through. It looked like Aiden Owens-Delerme had it in his pocket, creating this huge gap in the 1500, which is one of Owens-Delerme's best events. But Leo Neugebauer, I think it was pure spirit. It was like a 6-second PR in the 1500 to get himself the win. And then we had Owen Delerme and Kyle Gardner to round out the podium. And in the heptathlon, Anna Hall finally got her global golds. Bronze, then silver, and it's finally gold for the first American since Jackie Joyner-Kersee to be able to accomplish that feat. So sweet for Anna Hall. And when she had the lead, or even if she had been only close, but she did have the lead going into the 800, we just knew. And her teammate also getting on the podium with a bronze. Actually, that podium went 4 ways as well because she was tied for the bronze with KJT, but an amazing final. It was so good, although the men's heptathlon was absolutely heartbreak for Sander Skotheim. He fell in the 110 hurdles, finished the race, but then was disqualified because he knocked over a hurdle with his hands. It just never goes that man's way. One of these days he's gonna get him, but I think it might take like 10 years because honestly I just think his luck is the worst. And with that, we can finish out our competition and finish talking about this meet with the relays, the 4x4 and then the 4x1. Starting off with the men's 4x400 meter relay, I think the second we saw all the Botswanan men on the line for the individual 400, we knew that it was going to be Botswana. Botswana from the United States and South Africa rounding out the podium. Honestly, this was such a great race. In the rain, it's poetic, it's beautiful, and it was close. Only a few hundredths of a second. I think that's 700ths of a second. But Botswana, Kevin Achippi just holding them off for the win. On the women's side, however, no one was beating the United States. Isabella Whitaker, Linda Irby-Jackson, Aaliyah Butler, and of course, Sydney McLaughlin, who only had to run like mid-40, like high 47s, low 48s to bring this home because they won with a course record 3:16.61. Sydney McLaughlin on the last leg looked like she was out for a jog in the park because Aaliyah Butler gave her such a big lead over Jamaica, who came in for the second 3:19.25, and the Netherlands were able to round out the podium with a 3:20. And Femke Bol coming in hot, but just all by herself could not make up a whole lot of ground, but it doesn't help when the person in front of you is Nikisha Price and then Sydney McLaughlin-Leroney. That's a pretty rough draw of the cards. As far as the 4x1s go, we had the United States winning on the women's side, United States winning on the men's side. Melissa Jefferson Wooden, Tanisha Terry, Kayla White, Sha'Carri Richardson, Christian Coleman, Kenny Bednarek, Courtney Lindsay, and Noah Lyles were on those two teams. On the women's side, they were followed up by Jamaica and then Germany. The Olympic bronze medalists pick up another bronze here. They also had an A+ reaction to that news. And then to round out the podium in the men's 4x1, we had Canada. They were the ones to beat, and the U.S. went out and beat them. Honestly, Canada has been so good, so consistent. Their handoffs are so good. And anytime the U.S. beats them, it's going to be because they got lucky. Because I say this with all the love. You can tell by my Vermont City Marathon shirt. I'm American. And I love to watch them, love to cheer for them. But anytime they get that baton around the track, it's a miracle. Because those handoffs, they are sus, they are sketchy, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, this is so bad, and it's better than I could do, but it reminds me of when you're like trying to teach a brand new 4x1 team at the beginning of the season and just everything's falling apart and you're like, ah, and it's like, if they trained it more, like were more used to it, it probably would go better. I just think that they don't maybe work on it as well as some of the other teams, or maybe they're just, I don't know, maybe it takes a specific skill set, I'm not quite sure. But anytime they get it around the track and they finish with the baton in their hand, I'm like, that was a good run. But this time they did manage to beat the consistency kings that are the Canadian quartet, coming home for 37-29, and the Netherlands rounded out that podium with Ghana and Germany just missing out. And that concluded the event. That concluded World Championships. I have a lot more videos that I really want to make on this World Championships. Stay tuned for those in the coming days. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye!